Hello, we're just going to get this started in about 2 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, SEO, You're Doing It Wrong. And first up, I want to apologize for how rude that may seem. We're Midwestern, so we want to be polite about this. SEO, You're Doing It Wrong is a little strong, but we've seen it done wrong. It can be done wrong. So first of all, just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Michael Sapiro. I'm Vice President of Operations here at Converge Consulting, and I'm also an SEO enthusiast. And I'm very, very excited to talk to you today about this topic. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of aspects of SEO that aren't necessarily given consideration. And that's just really, it's one of the more exciting things we work in. So let's get started. You've probably seen photos floating around on the internet of things being done wrong. So here's an example. Facebook. This is not how you do Facebook. Facebook, you're doing it wrong. That's just a book with a face. Bass playing. This is not how you play bass. Probably seen things like this. And a CAT scan. Adorable, but it's wrong. So SEO. We're talking about this today. We're talking about how to do it. What happens when you do it wrong? Well, there was kind of a whole industry of SEO that back in the day, it's not as common now, called black hat SEO, where it was all kind of trying to game the system, and they were kind of using unsavory practices. So we're going to look at some of the practices that were black hat, and these are very clear-cut examples of what not to do. And even though it shouldn't be done today, some people do it, and it has been done in the past, so it doesn't affect past clients of these agencies or whomever was doing the black hat tactics. So let's look at our SEO Hall of Shame. Keyword stuffing. So there's an example here on the screen of a small business CRM. So they had a great idea. Yes, let's put that as a keyword in our copy of small business CRM, target that, and they just kind of took it to the extreme. So do you see all the instances, this is crazy, of small business CRM being put in this example, no human being would write like this unless they're really, really bad at writing. This is just not made for people. So it's made to try to game the system. And I guess that's one of the main points of when you do SEO wrong, you're trying to game the system. That's, again, these are clear-cut examples of how not to do SEO. Another example would be sometimes sites would be built that were link farms that were made with the sole purpose of just generating a bunch of links to certain websites. So these, again, are sites that really, who would use it? Why would these exist if not for that purpose? And again, these are not as common. There's just been a lot of Google's kind of put the crackdown. The search engines don't really value these tactics anymore. Spam blogs. So these are blogs that are kind of similar to link farms, but they're just made to rank highly on certain keywords, and they sometimes look like gibberish. I'm sure you've all seen this at one point in your time being on the internet. Often they were done to drive revenue for impressions for advertisements. Again, just an unsavory practice. So none of you are probably doing this. So why don't we talk about something that maybe people are doing, something that's very common, and probably when people first think of SEO, this is probably what they think of. Okay, this is a classic SEO example, right? You've got a page, a web page here, and in your H1 tag in your headline, in your H1 tag in the headline, you've got your chocolate donuts. It's a bakery. They're trying to target chocolate donuts. There's an alt tag of chocolate donuts. Yeah, this is all great. You should do that. You have chocolate donuts, various ways of saying it throughout the text. And this looks a little condensed to me, but generally that's not bad. In fact, it's good to plug keywords in like this. The page titles, H1 tags, meta descriptions, having keywords targeted in your URL, in your alt text, etc. This is all great, and it's probably what the majority of people think of when they think of SEO. But this is the point. If that's all you're doing, then you're doing SEO wrong, because there's so much more to SEO. So we really need to look at the big picture. So a great way to do that is to look at a couple of charts here. The first one we're going to look at is a poll that was given to actual SEO, that's a term for people that practice SEO. And so some of the top people that have studied the different algorithms, especially Google, and what factors into how things rank. So you can see right here, the top two have to do with links and domain. So your www.whatever, .edu, that's your domain. And then page level, so your individual page, links going to them. Then there's page level keyword, content based. That really, those three make up the significant share of what they say is significant as far as ranking. And then there's other things like keyword agnostic features like load time, brand metrics, usage, etc. But really those make the bulk. Now remember, this was a poll of SEOs about what they were saying was actually currently the situation. So it's actually, when we're looking at this poll, we have to think about it retroactively. They were polled about the year before. So what about what's coming up? We're kind of at a crossroads here. So SEO tomorrow. This is what these experts said. The top factors would be analysis of a site's perceived value to users, and we'll get into exactly how search engines understand that in a little bit here. Authorship metrics. Sometimes you've seen, like when you do a search on a blog or something like that, you would see someone's face and it would have a link and say this is the author of the blog. That's kind of what that's talking about, and we'll get into that further down the road in this presentation. Structured data is also sometimes known as semantic markup, semantic SEO. This is really something we're very excited about at Converge, and is really kind of the future not only of SEO, but the future of the way we access the internet. So we'll talk about that in a bit too. Google Plus, social shares, usability design, and usage data. So really looking at this top kind of section of what is important and what's increasingly important, you really want to think about it from this perspective. It's usability, it's shareability, and it's providing search engines with additional information. So again, just take a step back, and we're at a crossroad, because before that, we were talking about links, and it's all things like link farms. You could see how that could easily be gained. content, keyword content. You can see how that also can be easily gamed. So it's not that those things aren't a factor. It's that Google and all these other search engines are widening the pool of factors so that it becomes more, just probably more accurate and probably more trustworthy of a process, if that makes sense. So you may be saying, yeah, great. So what do I do with all of this? Well, this is kind of how we think about having comprehensive SEO. And before we dig into each, I just want to make it very clear, not everyone can hit on all these different points. Especially in higher ed, we're all at very, very different processes and points in time in our web developments. So we're going to go over all of this, and anything any of you can do from these will help. And doing all means you're really cooking with SEO. So going through these, we have strong on-page optimization. So that's what we looked at in the beginning. That was when we said, yeah, you've got your keywords targeted in the right tags. You've got your keywords, throughout the copy, metadata, kind of the classic SEO thing. That isn't necessarily wrong, but if that's all you're doing, you're not doing enough. Then we have something called themes, understanding your themes. And what that is, if you think about it, we have this on-page optimization before it, right? That's what we looked at. And then you've got themes, and themes are wider. It's kind of like, what are you signaling to Google that your web presence is about, that your whole website's about, your domain. So you're trying to understand things about your value propositions, about your brand points, and we'll get into this in a second. It's a comprehensive kind of content strategy, for lack of a better term. Then there's fixing technical errors. There's certain things that have to be done to make sure that search engines can crawl through your site. They often send out crawlers, bots, whatever you want to call them, that go through and understand the architecture of your site and what your site's about, and if it's quality, if it's put together. So fixing those things, we'll get into this a little bit more too. We'll get into all these. Utilizing semantic markup, we just talked about that. It's essentially providing additional information to the search engines and establishing relationships between things. So it's kind of moving from a text-based understanding of what's on your page to more of a entity relational kind of understanding. Developing and sharing great content. This is the simplest and probably the most important aspect of SEO. So it's just doing a good job. If you make good content, you're really winning the battle right there. And sharing it is also key. So, and then last is developing excellent information architecture. That's something that gets neglected quite often as an SEO thing. But it's crucial. It really is crucial. It's gaining in importance, as you saw from usage rates. So let's start off with themes. What is a theme? Well, we define it as ideas or topics around which you can build domain-level authority in order to gain a significant share of related searches. So let's talk about the why for this. So at one point, when you tried to kind of own a large grouping of searches, large swath of searches, you would just make landing page after landing page after landing page, and you would target what they call long tail keywords. And long tail are just really specific. So like, MBA program in Utah with, a certain focus, a sustainable focus or something like that. That would be like a long tail search. So you would make a lot of different pages targeting that. And Google, again, is kind of saying, well, let's just judge this website by overall, is it a trustworthy sort about, say, MBA program? So it would rank highly on that, or sustainable MBA, or whatever. It knows that, it associates that with your domain. So why does that tactic of trying to target everything not work? Well, quite simply because you can't target everything. Because over 70% of the traffic that you earn, you can see this right here, for any given page, it will come from keywords you didn't try to optimize for. And 15% of all Google searches, which equals over 500 million per day, have never even been seen before. They haven't come into existence. And so you can see, I actually took this screenshot from Moz. It was formerly called SEO Moz, a great website for SEO learning and resources. You can see how when people search for Google algorithm update, they kind of optimize for three, like Google algorithm update, Google algorithm, and Google algorithm change. But they're also getting traffic for SEO updates, Google updates, SEO, Google SEO updates. So it's kind of like Google understands that it's just a trusted authority on this general topic. That's kind of what we're talking about. So don't try to build a landing page for every possible query, but do put together a content plan that allows you to own a large amount of searches for a certain topic. So when you're thinking about this content plan, it's really important to think about what sort of traffic the areas you want to own are going to pull in towards you. So ask yourself these questions. What is absolutely unique about my institution? Because people searching for that item will be really, really probably apt to convert and attend. So you want to own what people want about you. What sort of searches are most likely to matriculate? Same kind of thing. What's a qualified search? So owning topics that would pull that sort of thing in. What is obtainable? That's also very important. Some schools have such huge web presence, and they're so well respected, and they've had authority for so long. You know, you got to kind of pick your battles and know, and that's something you just have to spend some time considering and researching on. And then you want to think about how you can create content around this in a natural way. And natural being key. This should not seem forced. Like, remember that CRM example, small business CRM, that just felt forced. You want to make sure this content feels like it's flowing, and it's natural, and it's really about your university, college. So those are very important to think about. So we're going to move on. Basically, just remember, you're trying to own a large portion of searches. We'll go back to the themes. We're trying to own a large portion of searches for something that's relevant to your school's brand, and coming up with a content strategy around. That's kind of the long and short of themes, and it can obviously get a lot more complicated if you were to dig into it deeper, but we don't have time today, unfortunately. So technical. How do you define technical errors? Technical errors are items that directly affect how a search engine crawler would understand your page. Remember, we talked about there's some things that the search engines just send out bots and crawlers to better understand your presence, and these are things that will help that. So we see basically a few really common technical errors when you do work. One is duplicate content. We see this all the time. I bet you a lot of you look at your Google Analytics, you see like a www and then a page that doesn't have www in front of it listed, and they're really the same page. That's duplicate content. There's 400 level errors, 500 errors. These are status code errors. Missing title tags, missing meta descriptions, and then temporary redirects. So we're going to dig into each of these and just kind of do an overview and just kind of tell you how to fix them. A lot of them are very, very simple and will, move the needle on your SEO if you do so. So let's start off with duplicate content. And so what is it? There's similar content, or mostly identical, practically identical content on two different URLs. So basically the same page, two different URLs. And this is bad because it confuses search engines in a sense that it doesn't know which one's authoritative. It doesn't know, there's different metrics, link metrics that search engines kind of grant, and link juice. I guess overall saying, is this a good quality page that has credibility or not? It doesn't know how to rank that, who to grant that credibility to. And it doesn't know which one to pull up in search results. So, it's a significant problem. You don't want to have a lot of these. So you can fix this in many different ways. You can put a rel canonical tag on it, and all that does is it points to one page and says, this is the right one, this is the authoritative one. You can put a 301 redirect on one so that the other never loads. You just automatically get passed to a separate page. Or you could put a no follow, which means, spiders, bots, don't even worry about this. Don't come and explore it all. And one way to kind of get ahead of the problem and make sure it doesn't happen anymore is oftentimes on your CMS you can have a setting that will prevent some of these errors. And of course, each CMS is different, so checking with whoever owns that to see if that can be applied would be a good option. And with regards to which to choose between rel canonical, 301, and no follow, it really just depends on the situation and maybe even talking to IT on it. Generally recommend rel canonical. It's kind of the simplest to apply, and it's very effective. 400 and 500 level errors. I think you've all probably seen this. You've all probably been on a website and a page didn't load. Sometimes they have a cute little saying or a character or something like that that shows that this page isn't here. Well, this is an SEO problem. Sometimes, so the 404 is the most common one. There's also a 503 service not available error. The difference between the two is the 500 level is at the server hosting kind of level, and then the client is at the website, the webmaster level, I guess I would say. So how does it confuse a search engine? They just can't find the right page. So it's not there. So if they can't find it, that's a problem. And then it'll signal, in general, a negative user experience to the search engine. Remember, search engines value these user experiences. So how to fix? This is usually really simple. Often there's just a typo in the link. That's really common. Sometimes maybe a member of the web team has moved the page to a new location in your architecture. And other times the page is just gone and there wasn't really removal of references towards it on the website. And a little less common if the page is moved to a new server. So checking all those things, and of course those are very obvious how you fix it. You just point things in the right direction or remove instances of mentions to those deleted pages. So how about missing title or meta description tags? So what is it? A title tag is when you have a web page pulled up at the top of your browser, there'll be a title. And then also, as you can see, the Chicago Cubs example, it's kind of the first thing, the largest thing you see in a search listing. And then meta description is what is kind of the little paragraph snippet underneath that when something is pulled up on Google or Bing. So these are important. More important is the title page, because that is a really, really strong signal about what a site is about. It's one of the most important things that you can use keywords to target the title tag. If it's not there, then the search engine is missing a big clue about your website. With meta description, it's not necessarily a direct actor, but it will hurt your click-through of your search engine results page listing. If you see SERP on the side, that's what that stands for, search engines results page. And so it's just a bad thing, and you'll lose clicks on it. So how to fix it? Just add them. You can also often, again, put a setting in your CMS. I've seen sometimes people say that you can't publish without having them. That can be effective if you're able to do so. So temporary redirects. Here's another technical error. What is it? It's usually a 302 or a 307 status used to signal a temporary move. And this was done during maintenance. It's not really so common anymore, but I'm always kind of surprised sometimes when I see them. It doesn't pass any authority. It's just kind of like a ghost page in some sense. It's temporary, so they don't give it much. They don't give these pages much weight or credence. So a very, very simple way to do this is to not have them and switch them to 301s, which is a permanent redirect and works very, very effectively. So these are all kind of, I think these are pretty simple fixes, some things that you can go through and move the needle on your rankings with. Let's get into semantic. This is very, very exciting. If you're a dork, and I'm a dork, so I'm excited about this. What is it? Semantic SEO is providing open, structured data in order to increase search visibility by helping connect the users with the information that they want and that they need. So again, you're giving more information, an overabundance in some sense of information about what people would see on your screen. So it's optimizing for relationships too. It's trying to make the internet understand things not so much as blocks of text, but as different entities and entities that would have relationships with one another, so that it can really kind of understand how to retrieve information in the best way. Why is this happening? It's very, very simple. There's a decline in desktop usage, and there's a growth in mobile. I mean, I think that's not a secret to anyone. In fact, in 2014, we're supposed to, the internet usage in general, percentage of internet usage is supposed to be generally is mobile. The internet will shift from being from a desktop thing to being a mobile thing. So we're here, we're at this moment. And the point of the matter is sometimes search engines just want to retrieve you information. They don't always want to retrieve you a whole page. And I think you're beginning to see this probably now in your searches. Like, for instance, you could look at Major League Baseball rankings, and that'll, if you type that into Google, it'll just pull up the rankings for you. You won't be taken to a page that has that. And again, this is to address mobile usage because not everyone wants to dig for things. So again, you've seen this before. You've seen these on Google, Bing. Here's a couple of examples. So this first one you see with the guy's face, that's just an authorship tag. So you're linking someone's Google Plus account, and you're saying this person is an author of this article, and that's a form of semantic coding. Then there's another one that shows events, where there's events obviously on this Yelp page, and Google can actually just pull those out right away because it's been coded, it's been marked up, there's been an abundance of information provided about what these things actually are. Again, you can see one with a video. Just because you have an embedded YouTube video on your site does not mean that this is going to happen. You have to explicitly talk about this and code this in a certain way so that people will see that there's a video on the page from the search engine results page. And then, of course, you give extra information about it. What is the title? What is the time? You know, who is the artist, etc. So there's a lot of ways that this can be taken advantage of. One of the best ways to mark this up, and probably in fact the best way to mark this up and make these things explicit, is by using schema. Schema.org is a website that has a ton of resources, and it's very easy to kind of get the hang of on how to mark up your site. So basically what schema is, it's an agreed upon shared vocabulary for marking up your content with structured data. So Google, Yandex, Bing, Yahoo, they all agree, yeah, this is how we're going to understand this so that we don't need to make coders go through extra hoops, I guess, and do multiple instances of markup. So, and a little bit about schema is it kind of has this logic behind it, where it goes, everything is an item, right? So the most basic item type is a thing. Then there's different types of items that have different properties. Since everything's a thing, it has the properties of what a thing would have. But maybe it's also a thing that is a video, well then it would have specific video properties. Or if it's a thing that's an event, it would have specific event properties. And you can really, really get carried away with what you can mark up on your page. And you always want to mark up things that are just evident as far as content. So when somebody goes to your page, what they see is what you want to mark up and make explicit. You don't want to try to mark up things that are necessarily hidden. That makes sense. That could be a new form of black hat. I mean, that's the debatable thing. I don't want to get off on that, but the important thing is just mark up what's there. So how do you get started? Well, we saw that authorship markup in the search engine results page in that example a couple of slides ago. You can link your website to your Google Plus account, and you can use either a rel equal publisher, which is a brand level, so your school, or rel equals author. That would be if you have an individual person you want to feature. I generally recommend starting with the brand level. It's just simpler to apply, and you get a lot of bang for your buck, and it helps your Google Plus presence too. So that's a good option to consider. Also, you can place schema markup on your site, and again, start small. You can mark up almost anything on your site, and you can get carried away and feel overwhelmed and spend 10 hours on a page marking things up, and and maybe shelve the project for a little while. So don't get burned out on it. Just mark up some simple things to give you good bang for your buck, like videos, events, and contact info are really good ways to start. And also it takes time to build up trust as far as what Google will list in the results page. So having just something marked up and being a trustworthy site will eventually give you more credibility. You can add more schema as you go. And then if you want to test that, Google has a structured data testing tool. And actually, I think Microsoft has one out too. But if you go to google.com, web tools with snippets, you can plug in your URL or your exact code, and Google will kind of clean it up for you. It'll tell you what's working, what's not, and it will show what the search engine results page listing would look like. So it's really a neat feature, and it's free. So I highly encourage all of you to explore this. But let's dig into information architecture. Again, this is probably not something that everyone thinks about with SEO. If you do, excellent. Most people don't, especially at a higher ed institution where there's a lot of different voices vying for attention and weighing in on what a website should look like and how it should be organized. And I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this. So with IA, it's all part of probably a theme you're kind of detecting. It's a service to the user. So again, making things as friendly to people, actual human beings, as possible is just key. So it's all about the user, and this is another way of having service for that user. So Google and Bing will actually can tell based on user behavior on your website if you're being of service to the user. They're understanding actions on the page, and there's a good list of this, but two of the ones that I want to point out is dwell time and pogo sticking. So dwell time is the length of time someone's on your page before returning to search. So it would be kind of a bad deal if somebody came to your page and was just there for a very little while and then goes back to the search engine. That's a negative. So the length of time. So longer is generally considered better to a point. It just shows meaningful engagement, meaningful depth in your site, and that you're serving up good, valuable content. Now, pogo sticking is what the user actually searches for after the dwell time. So if the user doesn't go back to search, that's great, and that's a very positive signal for your site. If they go and they search for an alternative, they're on your site for a little bit, and they come back and they say, no, this isn't what I needed. They modify their search again, and Google is going to say, oh, you know what, this website is probably not that great. I mean, as far as serving up this specific query. So why does this factor into information architecture? Well, if your architecture guides people clearly to the right answers that they're looking for, then you're not going to have to worry about this. So when you do your IA, thinking about things going from broad to very specific is the best way to go. And the reason for that is it mimics how people naturally research. People generally will go from broad to specific. So you're going to want to have kind of a whole series of progressions and steps that are natural, that kind of create a funnel for this. And then you're going to probably not have to worry about people doing things like hitting back on their browser. Because if you do that, Google also considers that a very negative reflection on your web presence and on your information architecture. And they do keep track of this. So moving people forward. Another important thing is to just kind of make sure your site has really good internal linking. When you link to other pages on your site, you're kind of creating a web. You're establishing kind of like branches going off, and you're saying that these are all part of the site, and this is a clear way for the crawlers to get through and explore and understand all the nooks and crannies. So it's important to do this, and it's important to use common sense. So you link when things really are related, of course. I mean, you don't force anything. Try to make it right for the user. Don't overdo it, and vary up link text. And I think that's all common sense. And another thing that's a little loosely related, but don't forget about your URLs. It's really good to replicate your IA in your URL. So you can kind of see, there's an example here, Discover Ohio. They went to a visitor section, they clicked on a map. Well, that shows a journey right there. So try to think about, does your site show that journey? Is your architecture reflected in it? Have you heard this before? Content is king. This is probably the biggest cliche in the world of marketing, but it's very, very true. Content is king, and especially when it comes to SEO. So Google will actually mine your analytics to understand some aspects of your content, like time spent on a given page, a little bit different than dwell time. Social signals, so where are people active on social media and sharing your content? So remember, if you make great content, you're going to get great links. I mean, you've got to make a good product and people will want to refer back to you. This is just as applicable to a higher ed institution as it would be to like a fashion blog. I mean, in some ways, you've got to do well. People will link to you. We like to kind of think about content in two ways. I'm sure you've heard some of this terminology before. There's evergreen content, first of all. So that's content that is really perpetually useful. It's rarely updated. And a good example you probably see on higher ed websites are like academic department pages, curriculum in some cases that can be modified too. So you just want to make sure that you've got your thematic and on-page keywords. We kind of talked about the difference between the two earlier in this webinar. Making it extremely useful, and you do that by anticipating users' questions. You just want to really kind of build a very strong foundation and framework for these sites and pay very, very meticulous attention to them so that they're perpetually useful, perpetually relevant, and perpetually shareable and linkable. That's how you get the most mileage out of your evergreen. With Dandelion, that's content that just springs up constantly, and the purpose of it is it's supposed to spread. So examples are blogs, news, events. These are things that are generally done to get links. I mean, it's probably part of a content strategy. And of course, in order to do this well, you want to be timely, you want to have a strong viewpoint. Even as a higher ed institution, you want to present a strong viewpoint associated with your brand, be unique, and be very, very useful again. So again, if somebody's written about a topic 400 times and you do a Google search that's well represented, it might not be the best topic for you to focus on. It's not useful and it's not unique. So thinking about content in those two ways, Evergreen, Dandelion, and really come up with a strategy for each will be beneficial to you with your SEO. And then don't forget to share. So we looked a little bit at that chart earlier about what's going to increase in importance, and Google Plus was increasing in importance. I doubt many of you are on there actively day to day. Most people aren't. It has a huge user base, just not a huge active user base. But it's something you should definitely take advantage of for your website. Remember, Google is primarily, their bread and butter is search. So when they make another product, that's how they can leverage and bring value to that new product, the Google Plus social media platform. So when people share on Google Plus or give a +1 vote, which is kind of like you can embed that on your web page if you want, a little +1 signal. What that does is if other people are in your circles and you've endorsed it in that way, Google may bump up the rankings of your website in those circles. So it can kind of be like a grassroots SEO strategy. Besides the fact that they're instantly created inbound links and many other factors, I really recommend that you take advantage of Google Plus from an SEO strategic perspective. And then, of course, that's not to belittle any of the other social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. All very beneficial and all also increasing in importance. But until a search engine company owns them, can't be sure how important they'll factor in. So, and then an RSS feed, you know, that some people say, why would you ever do an RSS feed today? Some people say it's an essential. It doesn't hurt. I would say that can be helpful for getting the word out. So really, let's kind of review. This alone does not equal SEO. Not bad, and I wouldn't even be so harsh to say you're doing it wrong. I would say you got to do more. And again, this is what we see the most people doing. That very basic, plugging in keywords and optimizing in a certain way. What does equal comprehensive SEO is on-page optimization, focus on themes, cleaning up your technical aspects, coding semantically, having really good content, having great information architecture. So that wraps it up. We'll have time for questions in the end, just a couple I think we have time for. Before we get to those, I want to just kind of plug, we're having a very exciting conference in Nashville, Tennessee, October 13th through 14th, where we're going to cover SEO and we're going to cover a whole lot more. Everything analytics, brand, digital, inbound marketing, research, business practices. We have Kristen Hall, who's the head of the education vertical at Google. So that's going to be very, very exciting. And you can sign up on our website. It's right there on our homepage. And we'd love to see you. There. Also, we have a 2-day Philadelphia workshop. I don't know if any of you are looking for something to do this summer, but Becky Vardaman is our VP of Strategy, and she has done so many of these different workshops with people all across the country and worked with leading institutions. She's, you know, I don't want to talk up too much, but I think she's really a genius when it comes to this stuff. So if you want to just be an expert in analytics and even in some ways be able to understand how your SEO is doing with analytics, I highly encourage you to consider doing this. It's in Philadelphia. It's a great city to go and take a little quick vacation and kind of boost your professional skills. So, and then also we have lots of different resources. We have Friday After Class, which is a video series. We have white papers, blogs, mailing lists. We have all these different things that have all of the above resources that are available for you to just kind of learn. So with those plugs out of the way, I'm happy to take questions if anyone wants to click on the chat feature. We do have one question right now. We have, what is better for SEO, HTML or WordPress? That's a good question, and I hope I can answer it in the right way that it was asked. With WordPress, there are a variety of plugins you can get that can help with SEO, and some of them are quite good and help in a certain way. But as you kind of saw from the presentation, there's a lot more that's just more strategic and higher level and focused on content and those things of those nature that a plugin or a platform can't necessarily do for you. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. And again, feel free to use the chat feature here. We have another question. Will we get these slides afterwards? Yes, you will. You'll be mailed a copy of this. So if there was audio problems, you know, we apologize. I see some people commented that the audio is poor, but you'll get a copy in the slides. Happy to answer any questions too. Here's a couple more questions pouring in. Give me a second to read them. So we have a new question about how should we begin using a Google Plus account if we don't have one. That's very easy. That anyone with a Gmail account can sign that up, and if you have one set up for your organization, there's a process that you can set up and link your organization to a certain Gmail account. It's very easy. There's a lot of documentation on it, and it's a snap. So there's another one. How important are friendly URLs in Google's new algorithm? That's an interesting question. There's been a lot of algorithm updates, and a lot of what we've been covering about from the shift away from, I'd say, certain ways of doing SEO to this newer way, semantic coding and content and everything. It's caused some shifts. I still think friendly URLs are good in general. Remember, we're talking about how to appeal to people, and I think having a URL that is organized and reflective of your information architecture and is clear to understand it's just good to do in general. Here's another one. Any free tools to help with feedback on our site? Yes, Google Webmaster Tools. Anyone can do that. That's free, and it's an SEO tool, and I encourage you all to look into that. And also, if you haven't submitted your XML sitemap to Google Webmaster, it's a great way to kill two birds with one stone. Everyone should be doing that. That's a way to just, again, make things very clear to search engines about what your site is. How hard has the education sector been hit by SEO updates? Very good question. I guess that's a good question. Is a complicated one. I've worked with some institutions that have had SEO companies do black hat tactics, and they were hit. Like, they were hit by that because at one point Google shifted and said that, okay, these old tactics that these agencies were doing are just totally not appropriate and not helping make the internet a better place, and so they were bumped down a little bit. Some higher institutions are still kind of how would I say it? Still kind of living off of domain authority, just because of their rootedness, their legacy and their popularity, and because their brand reputation get a lot of links and a lot of chatter on social media. So some are doing better. I think it's the smaller ones that have been hit harder, to kind of not be long-winded about this. Here's a question. How to leverage SEO and paid search? Yep, there's certain ways of doing that. You can do research and find out if you're going to be targeting very specific kind of keywords. It may be easier in some instances if you're never going to be able to rank, right? Just because there's been a school that has so much authority, so much credibility about a certain topic, it may take years and years and years to build up your SEO reputation in order to rank properly and get ahead of them. And there's some ways people can say to take shortcuts. I don't want to get into that. It can get kind of sketchy. But you can use paid media to kind of just pay for a listing. That's what paid media is when you do, in some senses, when you do like AdWords search. You're paying for that listing. So if you have a budget to do so, they're usually also very competitive. If they're competitive in SEO, it can be competitive in paid media too. But that's always an option. All right. Okay, hold on. Let's just read a couple other questions. 1 second, please. So one has, some faculty like to create pages that mostly consist of links out to other institutions as we don't have the resources in-house. How negatively does this impact their pages and sites? If you have an excessive amount of links, I mean, if there's not a lot of content and it's a lot of links, I'd be cautious about that. I mean, it's kind of complicated because in some sense your domain is an education institution. So if it's referring out to academic articles and things like that, Google's smart enough to kind of understand that in some ways. They understand that this is an education institution shooting things out about topics in education. But again, if it's just links, there's not really any other content on it, and it's a huge amount of links, I'd be very, very cautious, and I would encourage them to kind of figure out a different way to achieve their goal. If that's possible, I know faculty can be hard to convince of that, but okay. Have I ever used article builder. I have not personally. That's one question. That was a quick one to answer. There's a suggested balance for the amount of links on page. There's no magic formula for that. Again, it's what would be, well, let me think about that. There's no magic formula, that's for sure. Again, you're making it for a human. So again, sometimes humans want to click a lot of links, right? And you can have a lot of links on your page, but it's got to be in the context and house within something that's easily navigable and easily has good content. So you just want to, when you look at it, you can kind of tell. Remember we saw that example of what a link farm looked like? I don't think anyone's doing that, but you can kind of tell when you look at it, this is made for a person. So again, there's a bit of judgment, there's a bit of art and science here that you have to kind of factor in. Okay. Okay, I was waiting for a couple more questions. Oh, here's a good one. Of the 6 topics, what do you think is most important for the future of higher ed? So, priority on what to implement first. Well, first of all, what you can implement. But I would say having a content strategy, you can kind of couple your creation of content and sharing with that thematic kind of idea. So I would think really taking a long, hard look at what your brand value propositions are and figuring out ways to disseminate content that way and weave it in throughout your website. I think that's really important. That would be number one, because it usually lends itself to links and chatter and credibility. So I would start there. I'd also really look at, because no one's doing it, semantic SEO. There's not direct correlation right now to having these things and increased ranking in search engine results page. But I'll tell you what, if you have rich media snippets, things like videos or pictures of people or whatever on the search engine results page, you might get a higher click-through rate than the #1 listing. That could happen. Typically, it's thought of if you're not in the top 1, 2, or 3, you're not going to get any clicks. Well, if you have these rich snippets, it might really be a shortcut to get you there. And as your click-through rate goes up, you could have very well increased in your rankings as well. So I consider that this is wide open territory for higher ed. Not many people are doing it. So those are the top 2 I would do. So yeah, that's how I'd prioritize it. Okay, are there any other questions? We're just about out of time as well. Okay, I don't see any more. So I wanted to let me put this back up here. And hopefully we don't have, good thing the technical difficulty started at the end, right? Okay, all right, let me just give you my email. It's michael@convergeconsulting.org. If any of you have other questions about this, just please email me, michael@convergeconsulting.org. I'll be happy to just give feedback if I'm able to. Thank you for your time, and it's been a pleasure to hear myself talk. Just kidding. Again, thank you for your time, and please consider coming to other webinars and our conference in Nashville. Thank you.